Thank you, Sean. Opening statement. Together, there is only one presence and one power in the universe, God, the good, omnipotent. And let's take that truth inward as we join together in prayer. And we are indeed open and receptive, responsive and expressive of the divine good that is flowing through our lives. We are channels of God's good in all ways, in our thinking, in our actions, and in our being. So we give thanks for this special day, this Father's Day Sunday, where we celebrate the divine masculine. We celebrate the power, the strength, the intelligence, the consciousness, the protection, and the love of God that expresses through the divine masculine. And we give thanks for this. We give thanks for all fathers in the world who are examples to their children to grow up to express their divine essence. We give thanks and we pray this in the name and in the nature of the indwelling Christ presence. And let's just take a moment as we breathe together in the quiet to allow that presence to awaken in us. And so it is. Amen.
Amen.
And as we continue in meditation, I invite you to gently relax your body by breathing deeply, allowing the breath to calm the body, and the mind begins to follow. So as we breathe deeply, we bring our awareness into our hearts, connecting with the love of God, connecting with the power and the presence of God in our hearts. And together, as we come into this collective consciousness of love, of light, of Christ consciousness, we allow our awareness to increase. The awareness of the presence of God in and around us. The awareness of the path that we are on, ever unfolding and ever evolving into a greater expression of our Christ nature, our divine essence. In unity, we know that there is a spark of the divine within each and every one of us. And we're here today to remember that and to fan that flame, fan that spark into a mighty flame. That all that we do is an expression of the divine, of God. So we give thanks for this birthright that we have to step into a greater expression of who we truly are. So we just allow God to infill us with this truth. We allow our hearts to open with each breath, coming into the truth of who we are, modeling the teachings, the life, and the example of Jesus the Christ, our Rachel or an elder brother, modeling all the masters who have walked this earth to show us how to be fully human and fully spiritual. As we just open our hearts even more with another deep breath, to be more present to this love. Remembering that it is God's good pleasure to give us the kingdom. It is God's good pleasure for us to come into the fullness of our divine essence. And it is God's good pleasure to accept that each one of us is that living, walking lighthouse in the world, sharing our light, shining our light, being the peace, being the wisdom, being the compassion that is so needed right now on our planet, in our country, in our homes, and in our hearts. So we take some time in the quiet to affirm, I am an expression of the divine. I am an expression of the divine in the quiet. as we take another deeper breath, we bring our awareness back to this time and place, grateful for the opportunity to be in unity, to be with brothers and sisters today in this congregation, to be lifted up, to awaken the divine, and to shine. And so it is. Amen.
And now, the Lord's Prayer.
Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday.
Welcome to your home church. Welcome to this spiritual experience of becoming more aware of the presence of God within us and all around us, and discovering a way to bring that out into the world in a greater way. And happy Father's Day. And there's a few things, I thought about not sharing this because playing music with my daughter is such an example of being a father, and my experience of being a father with Sophia, and the joy that we've had over the years playing music together. But there's a list of things that all daughters need to hear from their fathers. One is you can grow up to be anything you want to be, even if you don't want to grow up. And it's an important thing for fathers to tell their daughters because, the way the world is with the glass ceilings and the inconsistencies in our culture with women, it's important to let our girls know that they can be whatever they want to be. It's important that they hear us tell them that they can, that it's important to do what makes you happy. If I had the talent that she has, when I was her age, I'd be playing music every day, whether on a street corner or on a stage or somewhere. But hopefully, maybe someday that will be what Sophia wants to do or something else. But it's important to her that she finds what she's most happy doing. Another important thing to do with our daughters is to, I would say to her occasionally, let's go to a hockey game, or let's go to a football game, or let's go to a baseball game, because it's easy to do that with our boys, to roughhouse with them and to do some of those things. But it's also important that our girls get that experience. And my friend Pete's here, and his daughters are avid soccer players and runners and athletes, and it's an important thing that girls also develop that side of their nature. But I also take her to get her hair cut and buy clothes and things like that, so I try to do that nurturing side too. It's important to tell our daughters how grateful we are to be their dads. And I know I've told Sophia several times how grateful I was that she was showing up today to support me in this experience. And lastly, it's important to tell them, I love you, right? We all need to hear that. I'm surprised in my years of ministry and counseling that how many people didn't hear that from their parents. There were generations when you weren't supposed to let your kids know that, or you weren't supposed to be friends with your kids. I know my father experienced that from his father. So it's important to let our children know that we love them. I love you, baby. Sean asked me to let you know a little bit about myself and my experience in Unity. I was ordained 22 years and 10 days ago at Unity Village, the class of 1998. It was an amazing experience to be at Unity Village at that time when we were actually in school there for 2 years, and to be in that cocoon, to be in that energy of being a ministerial candidate, and all the activity that was happening at Unity Village at that time. It was a beautiful experience in my life, one of the best and one of the most beautiful. I've served 3 ministries over my career as a Unity minister. Started out in Sussex County, New Jersey, where Sophia was born. And then my former wife and I went out to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and served there for 10 years. And then we came to Stuart, Florida, where Sophia's mom is the minister up in Stuart. And then I stepped out of ministry about 5 years ago to pursue some other things that I wanted to do with my life, some other deeper healing work and counseling work that I've been doing. I've served at almost every level of ministry or service in the Unity Movement, from being on the regional boards in the Eastern Region to being the president of the Eastern Region to serving on the board of Unity Worldwide Ministries and served a term there. And I've served as a liaison between the youth and family ministry and the consultants of the youth and family ministries and the boards. And one of the things I'm most proud of is I've been to probably 15 YRU rallies where I got to be the minister for the weekend and provide the music for the kids. And that's just an amazing experience to be with the kids. One of my greatest accomplishments was at the church in Albuquerque. We grew a youth and family ministry from 2 families to about 50 young people coming to church on Sundays. And just was very proud of that, to be able to get that message to our youth. In addition to my Unity experience, I'm also a certified yoga teacher, a certified heart math professional, a certified recovery life coach, and currently I'm serving as a spiritual and wellness director of a recovery treatment center in Missouri, just outside St. Louis. And geez, and I'm only 35. Can you believe it? I've done a lot. And one of the things I left out of there is that I've been clean and sober for over 30 years, 11,075 days today. Without that, none of this other life that I have got to experience would have happened. And so that's been one of the foundations of my life that led me to Unity. So back to our lesson. My guiding scripture is, I shall be satisfied when I awaken in thy likeness. Psalm 17:15. I shall be satisfied when I awaken in thy likeness. To me, that means that this journey of what we call in Unity the Christ consciousness is an ever-evolving journey to wake up that divine essence within us. And there are many ways to do that. There are many influences in our lives that help us to do that. There's a story of, it's Father's Day story of a young boy and his father out walking on a country path one day, and they come across this tree that had come down over the path, and the little boy says, "Dad, do you think I can move it by myself?" And he says, I think you can if you use all your strength. And he goes to move the tree, and he pulls and pushes and tugs on it, and he can't move it. And he said, "Dad, you were wrong. I can't move it." And he says, "Well, try again." And this time the dad grabbed the branch with him, and they moved it off the road. He said, "See, you just didn't use all your strength. You didn't ask me to help." So all the things that I've done on my journey, all the men are kind of laughing here. We don't ask for help, right? All the things that I've done on my journey, I have never done them alone. I've had sponsors, I've had mentors, I've had colleagues, I've had congregants, I've had clients, I've had family and friends. That we don't do this thing alone. We don't do this thing in life alone. It's a lot more difficult when we do that, when we try to do it alone. So there's so many people in the world that are trying to help us. Another story of mine is that I grew up singing in the choir of the Church of the Holy Trinity in Westchester, Pennsylvania. It's really interesting being here with Mike. Mike and I discovered that we went to an event through 2 different organizations the same year in Graz, Austria. It was an international adjudication for boys' choirs, and we were both there, which is so weird, isn't it? Yeah, it's so interesting. And but our choir director, her name was Jane Moore, and Jane Moore pulled the best out of me. She encouraged me and let me do solos and all these things. And in 1992, when we had the 100th anniversary of that Men and Boys Choir, I went to that event. I was 2 years sober at the time, and Jane was there. And we did this great, all the choir boys and we're all men now, came back and sang with the current choir. And I had a moment with Jane. We were looking at pictures that were all laid out on the tables of years of choir. And she picked up a picture of me and said, "You were always my favorite." And it just kind of confirmed that feeling that I had that she gave me that always pulled me up. I grew up in a pretty dysfunctional home, and it was the one place where I really felt and believed I was worthy of love and that I was capable and I had something to offer the world. So have you ever thought about what Jesus' inspiration was? We think about Jesus and we just think about this enlightened being, right? He came onto the planet and he was fully awake. And yet he was fully human and he evolved in his spirituality. And I think about the baptism of Jesus when he came to Galilee, to John at the Jordan to be baptized by John. And John would have prevented him, saying, "I need to be baptized by you, and do you come to me?" But Jesus answered him, "Let it be so now, for it is proper for us in this way to fulfill all righteousness." Then he consented. And when Jesus had been baptized, just as he came up from the water, suddenly the heavens were opened and to him, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and alighting on him. And a voice from heaven said, "This is my Son, the beloved, with whom I am well pleased." Just think about that moment. Now, this wasn't like a voice that came out like on a megaphone, right? It says that only Jesus heard this. Jesus heard this. So what was that voice? That voice was his indwelling divine essence. It was his consciousness that in that moment, remember he had just spent 40 days in the wilderness fasting and praying and meditating. And then he goes to get baptized by John, comes out, hears this voice, and he steps into his greatness. He found his divine, and then he started to shine. It was from that moment that he started his ministry, that he came out to share his truth with the world. So maybe you've had that moment when you've connected with your divine essence, when you've heard that message that this is your gift to the world. This is what you're supposed to do with your world. We had this discussion in my ministerial class one day, about people who have heard the voice of God. And I had it in my early recovery when I started meditating, early in my recovery, and I heard the voice that said, "You will be successful with a large family." And someone said, "Oh, you got fortune cookie God." It's like, God speaks to me like fortune cookies. But I remember that moment so clearly to this moment when whenever I doubt myself, whenever I doubt there's a challenge, that I remember that moment of hearing the voice of God. It was a voice, a feeling, a thought that just spoke to me that has lifted me up and held me up through all my challenges, through all the things that I've wanted to accomplish in life. So what are the experiences in your life when you have connected to that divine essence? Maybe it's been here on a Sunday morning where you hear an inspirational message or a beautiful piece of music. Or maybe it's a time when you're meditating at home or with a loved one or watching a beautiful sunset. The truth is, God is in it all. And what our work to do is to embrace that divine essence and then take it the next step, which is our fifth unity principle, action. To know these truths isn't enough. We have to live them. We have to shine the light that we are. We're all called into it, especially in this time when there's so much transformation happening in the world. With the Black Lives Matter movement, with COVID, with all these things. It's a time, we were born for these times or we wouldn't be here. So we have to get in touch with that divine essence and then bring it out. Jesus was accused of being blasphemous, right? Of being a heretic, of being the Son of God or being God. People thought him But he knew who he was because he heard that voice, right? Some say that that's if we think we are the divine or we have a divine essence, that's heresy. But I think it's the most humble thing we can do, is to let our divine essence shine, to be who we are meant to be. It's within us. The Creator can't create anything unlike itself. So we're here to express that and to let it shine. That is our purpose in life. I know that is my purpose in life, is to express God. So anytime that the ego comes in and says we're not worthy of that, that's not truth. The truth is that we all have it, and our work is to express it. I just want to share one other story with you. One other teaching story. It's called The Imaginal Cells. And it's about caterpillars as they turn into butterflies. And so what happens when a caterpillar is ready for this transformation? It starts to eat ravenously, right? It starts to just eat up as much as it can. It eats it more than its body weight several times over and outgrows its skin several times. And then it attaches itself to a branch or something like a branch, and it hangs upside down, and it forms a chrysalis around it. And the next thing that happens is what comes online, what happens in the caterpillar is that these imaginal cells is what the biologists call these, the scientists call these cells, that weren't in the caterpillar start to show up. And first the caterpillar feels like it's being attacked. And its immune system starts to defend and kill off the imaginal cells until the imaginal cells get together and start to come together, and they take over the caterpillar, and the caterpillar then becomes this nutritional soup for the butterfly to emerge. And then in a children's story, in a children's book about this story, it's as if a butterfly takes a deep breath and it pops the chrysalis open, and it comes out of the chrysalis upside down and rights itself, and then it looks back at the chrysalis as if to say thank you for where it came from. This story has so many great metaphors in it. Look at our times and what's happening with all the protests right now, and Black lives longing to get the equality that our Declaration of Independence says, that the Bible says, that they deserve to be equal in the eyes of God and in the eyes of our government and in the eyes of our country. And so they're bonding together, and with the support of all people, with the support of a lot of people, to have that equality, to be able to live the lives that they want to live in peace and in safety. We all want that, right? So, and then what comes out of that? What comes out of that beautiful butterfly, this beautiful planet where we all can live together as one, which is what our movement is all about, right? Unity, to be together in one, as one. So my charge to you, knowing that you all have done a lot of work to awaken that divine essence in you by coming to church, by studying unity principles, by living them, is to let your light shine, to bring yourself out into the world in a greater way, so that we can live the lives that we want to live in a world that we want to live in. So I pray and affirm that all the circumstances of our lives serve the awakening of our hearts as we let our light shine. And so it is. God bless you.
All right, is everybody ready for question and answer? Yeah. I'll start it off. Reverend Bodhi Campbell.
Yes, sir.
Why here? Why now? Why at this time? Why Unity Church in the Gardens? What say you?
The number one reason is my daughter. I moved to St. Louis a year ago, and I haven't felt right being away from her. She's a senior in high school. So I said a prayer last September when she was starting to do her events in school that I was missing. And I said, I'm going to be back in Florida for her senior year. And I didn't do anything about that. And then this ministry reached out to me and asked me if I was interested. And I said, oh, that's my answered prayer. So living in St. Louis has been a tough experience, not only because it's been hard to make friends up there. I work full-time, and I work way out in the country, and rarely get a chance to go into the city or be around people. And then COVID hit, and then another thing, just like another level of isolation. And so those things. And then I stepped out of ministry due to a couple reasons. One is what I said before, which was the truth, that I wanted to explore some other areas of therapy and healing and things like that. But I also went through a divorce. My former wife and I were co-ministers. And I felt that my stepping away from ministry in hindsight was more about moving away, separating from her, than it was about going forward and doing other things. I didn't really realize that at the time. So now I have this opportunity to come back to Florida, to be by my daughter, to serve a ministry that is well established, and do what I love to do. I walked into Unity in 1991 and went off to ministerial school 4 years later and served in churches for 18 years. And so that's why Unity in the Gardens, because location, because of the opportunity. I know many of you, I guess, spoke here twice and did a little work with the choir for a while. So I'm familiar. I have roots here. My friend Pete is here, my best friend in Florida. We've had lots of experiences together. We do men's work together. It's something that I have a lot of connections here in this area. Something I would bring to this ministry if it's supposed to be. Did I check off all those?
There's a few more. I just can't remember what they are.
Well, it was why here, why now? Why here, why now?
I'm glad somebody was listening to me.
We're not used to that.
No, I'm not.
I was listening to you, Sean. Yes.
I just want to say that the saddest thing for me was to hear that Diane was leaving, and it really hurt me, and I felt lost. And then COVID came, and it's been really, really difficult for me. And then we couldn't come to church. And I do feel like this is my family, and this is my home when I want to come to pray and to be here and to be here. And there's one other thing I want to ask you is about the choir, because it felt good to have a choir. Do you think we might have a choir again if you are elected?
Yeah. Yes. That's my simple answer. And the reason I say yes is because I've always been involved with the music. So what I've learned over 30 years of being in Unity, that Unity churches, because of the energy, they really follow the consciousness of the minister, as it should be. I mean, it's the minister's vision for the ministry. And so I have a consciousness for music. So there will be music. And I also have a consciousness for youth and family ministry. And there will be youth and family ministry that I know there is already, and there will be again after COVID and all that. But when the minister has an awareness of these things, they usually show up in the ministry. And it's not that I have all the skill sets to do all those things, but I do have ways of identifying people into leadership. And that's my style. Well, I'll go on. Maybe.
Well, I just want to say that it feels like home again, and I don't, and this is just coming from me. I don't know what anyone else is going to say, but thank you for being here, and it's full of love and life, and just feels good.
Thank you. I'm very excited to just touch back on Sean's question, because I want to get back into ministry, what I'm good at. I'm good at what I do now as a spiritual wellness director at a treatment center, and the population that I work with are folks who are very wounded, and I only get to see them for 30, 60, 90 days and they're gone. The thing about ministry is you get to help people live their dreams and become their highest and best, and it's not always about being broken. Sometimes it's just about evolution, evolving, consciously.
I'm going to ask a question that Scott, I believe, asked the previous candidate, and that is about what would be your vision for maintaining membership in Unity Church in the Gardens and attracting new members, and what in your skill set prepares you to do that?
Experience is one of them. As a yoga teacher and also a musician, one of the things that I did in Albuquerque for 8 years was a kirtan concert once a month. And that started out with like 75% Unity people and 25% people from like the yoga and spiritual communities. And by the time that ended 8 years later, when we left that ministry, it had flipped, where about 75% of the people were people from the community and 25% from Unity. And the numbers grew, so it wasn't that the people from Unity weren't coming. So it was one of the side doors that brought people into the ministry. Things are changing. We don't know exactly how things are going to look. But, Unity Worldwide Ministries supports this branding effort that puts our name out there more. We were one of the first churches to do that branding exercise in Albuquerque, or that branding program. And, I get out there. In the organizations that I've been in, I attract a lot of people. When I got to Stewart, started this men's group that wasn't happening. And when I left, there were 12 men sitting in a circle on a weekly basis. Not just because of me, but I initiated it. And I think, there are lots of things. Sunday morning is so important. A good inspirational Sunday morning is when the whole community comes together, and all the events happen during the week, the classes and meditations, different things like that. So I think we have to offer more things. I think we have to offer more practical things, even such as like conscious eating, cooking classes, in-reach and outreach programs. I'm also a certified yoga for youth teacher. So just another way to reach, I think you have to reach young families. If you reach young families, you have some depth. It's interesting to watch ministries across denomination, we're aging out. If you're not bringing young people in, churches are closing left and right because we're aging out. And I'm going to be 60 next month. And so, I'm really, this is like, I feel very excited about my life at this point, which also speaks to Sean's question, why now? Because this is a time where I feel very healthy and very excited about getting back into ministry, bringing the things I've learned over the past 5 years into my teachings, and also teamwork. The skills that I don't have around how to attract people, we will make it an imperative from the board and form some teams to, how to do that, which is the way that it has to work. If individuals are doing it, it usually doesn't work. So I'm a good team builder. That's one of my skills. My leadership style is that leadership, not management. A leader brings out the best in people. A management is concerned with the bottom line. There's a blend of both of those that are important. But my inspiration in being a minister is helping people be the best they can be, and that's fun to do in ministry.
Thank you.
Yes?
Do you see yourself, if you become our minister, do you see yourself leading classes? Because maybe it was just Diane. The classes that she taught
classes that she taught, you felt more called to?
Yeah, and it might have been her, but can you see yourself doing different kinds of classes?
Yeah.
That's one of the first things that drew me to
Yes.
church.
I do. I mean, there has to be a foundation of unity, and then you go from there. And yeah, I've taught. One of my favorite classes to teach was the 4T Prosperity Program that I did I did 15 out of 18 years, and so yeah, I teach unity classes and some of just the other more up-to-date classes on spirituality, meditation. I'm a meditation teacher, which is something I love to teach. So the other thing that I'm proud of is that there are about 6 leaders in the unity movement that I've mentored that are credentialed now. One of them being my former wife, who I mentored and ordained, and there are other ministers out there. So I like to, help people answer their call, and that means having licensed teachers or things like that on staff that also help to teach those classes. I look at your schedule, and you have a lot of classes by a lot of people who aren't necessarily unity teachers. They're good teachers. John Polici is a wonderful teacher, and he gets to draw different people in. So, yeah.
Charlie, you had a question?
I did. So, thank you for being here. So you mentioned the bottom line in management, so I immediately went to the business aspect of running a church, because the stark reality is we are, in addition to being a church and a spiritual family and a community and everything, we're a business.
Right.
So what is it that you bring to us business-wise, business acumen, knowledge, skill, all of that will help, that will run a business?
Yeah.
And the nuts and the bolts and the stuff,
Yeah.
keeping the lights on, those kinds of things.
That's a good question. I'm sorry.
No, that's.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
Mhm.
And if I would have been, more present in my first interview with you when you asked me where my shortcomings were or where my growing edges were or something, I would say that that's probably it, is my administration skills. However, I know that as a minister of a Unity Church, I am the head administrator and the head spiritual leader. That's what I was like when I was ordained. I knew what I was stepping into. And again, being able to identify the people and to have their support in making sure all those things are in line. I do understand bylaws and all the things of how the ministry is supposed to operate. I do understand nonprofit. I've been doing it for a long time. So I know how to balance a checkbook. Those are the important things. The other things, I'm not going to set up the payroll or the accounting and things like that, but there will be somebody, and there already is somebody, who's capable to do that. Can I be in the conversation on every team, the finance team, the budget team, and all that, and hold the vision for the ministry? Yes. So I am involved. I was on the finance team every year in my ministry and the budget team. I came to those meetings. I gave my input and worked with the other team members. So it's not that I don't have those skills. I'm very computer tech savvy, and but I think 18 years of experience of seeing churches, of being able to run churches effectively, says a lot about how I do that. I also will acknowledge that my former wife was a big help in that end. That's where we balanced each other well. She oversaw more of the administrative than I did, and I really did a lot with youth and family and music and Sunday morning and classes. And also led a couple of campaigns, fundraising campaigns, that I've done over the past. Yeah. Is there anything in particular about that skill set that you're looking for?
No. When you said that, like I said, I just said,
Yeah.
how is that, and how is he managing things? So that's all.
Yeah.
I'm good.
I just want to remember what we're about, which is the spirituality aspect of ministry. And that can guide everything when that's in its right place. You know, when we're evolving and loving.
Reverend Bodhi, it would appear in this new environment we're in that an online presence is going to take a much greater role, not only in terms of time investment, but also potentially bringing in income. Do you have any ideas or how you might be able to spearhead an online presence for the ministry?
Yeah, first I have to get a haircut.
I know someone that's there.
This is my
tell me where I'm going to get my haircut too.
yeah, this is my COVID due.
My daughter put this in a tail yesterday, so it's got to go.
You used to wear a ponytail all the time. That's not
That's what this haircut was for, but it's not really long enough yet. But anyway, I've seen others that I'm impressed with who are doing some really good online stuff. Unity of Stewart's one of them. Unity Chapel, Village Chapel is another one with Reverend Aaron, Michael Beckwith. I think it's just putting the material out there, like doing a 10-minute daily word reading, doing an online meditation, doing an online class, and doing more with Sunday morning. So it's a nice presentation. Yeah. So, I mean, it's all kind of a mystery to what's going to work, but, you know, seeing the ministries that have big followings online, they do a really nice online presentation. So that's a growing edge. I can't say, you know, specifically what to do, but other than to start doing it, you know, putting some material out there, especially on Facebook, so people can click on it and
or attracting those that are really good at such things.
yeah.
No, I'm saying, you know, bringing in talent in the ministry that can handle those kinds of things and do
Yes.
it and make them polished.
Yeah, well, you got a great
Yes, we do.
cameraman here, and he's got some tech skills, and so there's a good foundation. I just think it's more about a particular presentation, which is hard to do when you have guest speakers, and you know, there's so much more I wanted to do here, like that song, "My Soul is Welcome Here." We used to play that live, and I wanted to so bad I couldn't find the music. You know, there's really a different energy when you're sitting and listening to a recorded music, or you're have live music presented, as you all know.
So you spoke about your own, as a leader, having your own inner practice. Can you share a little bit with us some of your own personal devotion time, and how does that look in your day?
Yeah, thank you. When I was 1.5 years sober, I went and I learned TM, Transcendental Meditation, because that was all I knew about meditation. I had some cousins who did that, and I thought it was weird when they were doing it, and I was like, 12 years old. But then later on, so I went and got initiated, and I've been practicing that. That was before I even found Unity. And then I read an article in Unity magazine which pretty much explained what I had just paid $400 to learn for $1.75. And I said, I want to find this church. And so my practice is to get up and meditate about a half an hour in the morning, 20 minutes of mantra meditation, and then all the other things I do, my prayer for others, my gratitude, my drawing in the energies of the deities that work with me. I would say that I work with, but I found out they work with me, such as Jesus, such as the Bodhisattva, such as Neem Karoli Baba, such as Coyote. I have all the, these different things I learn about myself. It's like, oh, so I'm dyslexic, and sometimes I say things backwards. So I realize that that's coyote medicine, because I've studied Native American, and I've studied A Course in Miracles. I'm a Kundalini yoga teacher. I'm a oneness blessing giver. All of these are part of who I am, and I'm an integrationist. So I take all of these practices and bring them into my presentations, into my teachings. And I think one of the gifts of that is that I can meet people where they are, you know, in their journey. And I do that now in my work because we have people who are born again Christians and people who don't want anything to do with church and people who are Buddhists. And, you know, I can meet them and help them enhance their practice, which is what Unity was all about when we started. People would come from their other churches and traditions and just talk metaphysics. And so yeah, yoga is a big practice for me, getting out my mat. I teach 5 classes a week, so I've noticed that I'm not doing as much on my own, but still I'm doing a lot of yoga. Breath work is really important, I think, with helping people heal and transform, which is a practice I really love. And music has always been a foundation of my healing journey.
I have one more question. How do you balance the needs of your family and yourself with that of what's being called from the congregation?
Well, lately it's been way out of balance because I live in St. Louis, away from my family, away from Sophia. When Sophia's mom and I were married, we were co-ministers, so we worked together, we lived together, and all of that. And so there was a balance when it was working. And I think it's important to have time off, you know, and not that you're not working every day. It's really, ministry is a setup for burnout. Across denominations, most people leave ministry after 5 years. Most clergy leave ministry after 5 years. So in the ministerial program now, they really teach about self-care. So to me, it's like grabbing Sophia and going to Key West for a weekend, or a week, or during the week. I realized when I stepped out of ministry, I got my weekends back, and that was like, wow, after 20 years, it was like, and holidays, it was like, wow, I can do. But I do those things. I remember one year in Albuquerque, we had 18 services between 3 weekends around the holidays. And then we'd always take the first week in January off and, you know, kind of regroup. So, but practice is the main thing. I'm really learning to take care of myself, you know, with prayer and meditation. And it's still a challenge. Thank you for the question.
Anyone else have any other questions?
So the other thing I'm going to request, like after the next service and the next question and answer, and then a meeting with the board, if someone could bring some oxygen back for me, I'm going to need to take care of myself. No, but I'll go to the beach. Maybe if Sophia wants to go with me, that was something I would love to do here, was go to the beach after church and just like.
I'm just being nosy, which people that know me know that I don't. No laughter. Where did you get the name Bodhi?
Bodhi, when I first read the book by Jack Kornfield in 1993 called A Path with Heart, he talks, Jack Kornfield is a Buddhist teacher, a psychologist, and I've been reading and listening to him for 30 years. He defined the bodhisattva in his book with this definition. A bodhisattva is one who is committed to awakening his own and everyone else's. That, I realize, is my work as a spiritual teacher and a minister. I'm always evolving, I'm always working on myself, and I'm helping others to awaken into the true self. So Bodhi means an awakening, and Sattva means being. So, you know, a spiritual name isn't necessarily something you are, it's something you aspire to be. So I aspire to be that awakened being. So that's where the name comes. I claimed it about 5 years ago. And so, yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Is everyone done with the questions? Well, thank you, Reverend Bodhi, for coming. You've blessed us.